Hey, this is Matthew Feingold. This is my video for my final project for GAM 475 Game Engine Programming 1. I wanted to start by going through some of my game code just to show how everything is set up, and then run the demo and talk about things in there, and then maybe go over the toon shading, which is probably the most interesting piece of this that I did. So anyway, let's start in the load content, where I set up my 3 cameras. I can have more, but I set up the three cameras and add them to my camera manager and set this one I called default as active. And then I load my 4 different models from these file names. I stuck with the Azul file name just for now because I couldn't think of one that I wanted, but I'll come up with one maybe over break. And then here I make and add my shader objects to the shader object manager and load up the shaders based on file name for the fragment and vertex shaders. Load up the textures, to add them to the texture manager, and then here I make and add all of my graphics objects to my graphics object manager. You can see everything's kind of all nice in one add. So here I kind of make these graphics objects for all my different cubes that I want to kind of demo the graphics objects on, and cylinders and pyramids, and diamonds. And then I do this instanced demo where I have one graphics object for many instances of cubes for game objects. And then I make my actual game objects. I add them to the game object manager and basically, make them right in there, pretty standard. And then here's the instance thing where I use the same one for all of these. And then here in the update, I update the camera, which has to be done once a frame. I do it first thing, and then I grab the keyboard so I can do the keyboard-based input. And then first I select which active camera I want. So we have 3, so I kind of set them as 0, 1, 2 key presses to set which ones are active. And then I control the camera movement here, so I grab the active camera, and based on the key press, you move the camera around with these functions here. I could quickly jump into one and kind of just show in the camera class. I do all my calculations here to update the camera's position up and target. And then after all of these, this is kind of from the class demos, locking the target to a particular object. I kind of liked the free camera. That's the only stuff I want to keep for now. I'll probably add like a lock to target function over break, but and then here's my rotation, and then here's some hot swapping of textures, just on key press going in and changing the texture. And then I update all my game objects. And then in draw, I draw all of them, and there we go. So I'm going to run this, and if I can get OBS to function properly, I should be able to drag this over here. Sweet. Maybe I'll try to make this a little bigger. Cool. Okay, so here we go. Here's my scene. I have these cylinders here. Everything's kind of rotating. The cubes, pyramids, and diamonds. I have 4 different shaders on here where the wireframe is using the color by position, which is the same as the one next to it. So the wireframe and this one is just a different graphics object for the rendering type. And then I have 2 texture with lighting shaders here, and then the const color, where you basically just have a color of the whole color of the object is the same, but then you have the lighting on it. And then this is the toon shading, which I believe it's working how the example in the Super Bible book showed. I think it looks a little off. It's pretty dark. I'll have to explore that more, but I can talk about that after. And then over here I have the instances of the cube that are all using the same graphics object here, kind of like proxy objects sort of from earlier. Anyway, so for the camera, know that I can move kind of strafe around, up, down, left, right, and go forward, go right through, go backwards, and I can also rotate. I'm not rotating in place exactly, I'm rotating kind of around the target. So it's kind of like I'm looking something. It's not quite first person, it's more of like a third person camera controls. And then, oh yeah, so let's set up, let's kind of just show, let's get this camera in an interesting position. I'll look at this pyramid. So this is our default camera. I can switch to our camera 1 and kind of go look at maybe this toon shaded red cube, and then I can select camera 2 and let's maybe get like some cool view of the whole thing here. So now I can kind of just hot swap between these cameras here, and I don't have a limit on the number of cameras, I just only happen to do 3 in this demo. But yeah, the cameras all kind of save their position, and yeah, so the toon shading, the way it's supposed to work is you're supposed to define, in this case, 4 levels of like color for lighting, and then clamp the different levels of lighting to those colors. So the really dark color here is the lowest level, and then it kind of goes up from there, and it uses a 1D texture to define that. So the Super Bible 7 book example just uses kind of like RGBA colors to define that, and then does a few 1D texture OpenGL setup things, and I kind of wrapped all that into my graphics object. I'd like to put the a lot of that functionality into the texture manager, but as of right now my texture manager only handles 2D textures, TGAs. So right now the graphics object itself is handling the generation of the color data, which I kind of just have in a switch statement right now. You can set it to blue, green, or red here, and kind of make it from there. I can maybe point out in my code here where I create it, my graphics object, over here I say toon shading color red, green. I can kind of just set it as data driven. I can add more enums and add more color data, but for now it's not in the texture manager. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about? I have the transformations with the rotation. That was kind of obvious from looking at the scene. Oh yeah, I've got all my game objects sitting on a PCS tree. And that right now is the scene graph. It's just a flat PCS tree for simplicity's sake, but that could be kind of recreated in this demo to however I want for that. I'll pull this back up. It's more interesting. So I think that covers just about everything. The rest I think can be seen in the rest of my demo. Let me take a quick peek at the PDF to make sure I'm not missing anything. I've got the lighting supported by the different shaders. I've got the textures with the manager. I've got the camera controls, switching cameras. My models are loaded up by a file, and I also write them to a file initially. Yeah, I think that's it. So anyway, thanks for watching, and see you next time.